everyone, I'm Lauren and welcome back to my channel. This is Light and Lavender, where we talk about all things books and my own writing journey, and today I've got November's, December's and January's wrap up to do for you. So I've been a bit lax in filming wrap-ups recently. I think this is the first time I've ever had to combine so many. It seems like the past few months have just been a little bit hectic and a little bit out there with trying to get everything done. I lost all motivation in December, so here we are. I'm going to go through each month individually and sort of like give you my main stats for each of the months and any books that I've got that I can go through at that point and just give you my thoughts on them. It's going to be hopefully a quick video and just like a quick rapid fire of all the books that I've read in the past 3 months. In November I read a total of 5 books, 2 ebooks, 2 audiobooks and 1 physical book. There were no library books in this month and my average star rating was 3.25 stars, which not a bad month to be honest. It was kind of like just a hit or miss one. I didn't read as much as I was anticipating, clearly by the 5 books, but it was an okay month. The first book that I finished in November was Mexican Gothic. I literally finished this on my way to the airport when I went on my holiday. I gave this book 3.75 stars and I actually really enjoyed this book. There was like a weird part between page 300 to 330 where it took like, I don't know, like a more horror-esque turn. I wasn't expecting it to go quite as far as it did, but I really loved the atmosphere in this. I loved the world building. I really enjoyed Silvia Moreno Garcia's writing style and it's made me want to pick up more of her books in future. But yeah, there was definitely like some craziness from 300 to 330 which would potentially like put a lot of readers off, and I think that's why this book has had so many sort of hit and miss reviews with it. But I did enjoy it. It was only just under 4 stars. I'm not sure if maybe I should have upped it to 4 stars now, but yeah, it was a really good book and I would recommend this to anyone who enjoys sort of like a gothic book and anything that's like horror-esque. I guess it's like a historical horror, I'm guessing, because it's set in the 1940s, but I did really enjoy it. And yeah, if you enjoy horror or anything that's got like sort of gothic, atmospheric feeling to it, this is definitely going to be one that you will enjoy. The second book that I read in November was The Man and the Crow by Rebecca Cruden. This is a very short novella and I gave it 3 stars. I enjoyed it. It was an easy enough book to read, but I feel like there was too much happening in the book that wasn't fully explained. There was 2 main characters, the man and his crow, and that crow was actually another man who'd been turned into a crow and they were boyfriends. And even though I'd read that on the Twitter description for this book, I had completely forgotten by the time I picked it up, and it wasn't very evident that there was a relationship there. I just thought the crow was being snarky and it was just a snarky character, and it was more of like a couple bickering kind of vibe, and I totally did not pick up on that. So I feel like there was just some bits that were not as done in the right level of detail to make this feel more realistic. Yeah, it is a independently published book as well, so I feel bad giving it 3 stars, but I did enjoy it and I like the writing style, so I have picked up another of her books. I can't remember which one it is, but I will be hopefully reading more of her work in the future. But it was just this one, I feel like it was maybe just a little bit too short for everything that it was trying to do. I would have preferred this to be a little bit longer and to go into more detail because there was so much happening in it, and yeah, it was a little bit disappointing that I didn't get it was so brief and everything was just sort of ran through really quickly. The third book that I read in November was Priestess of the White by Trudy Canavan. I gave this one 3.5 stars. I listened to this on audio. It was an okay book. It was very much epic fantasy, but I was confused by who I was supposed to be rooting for as like the good guys. So we've got this one religious sect called the Circleans, there's another set called the Dreamweavers, and then there's another one called the Pentadrians, and the Circleans are trying to take over the rest of the world pretty much and convert everyone to their religion because they've got the 5 true gods and everyone else is lesser. And I don't know, I just couldn't get past the really heavy judgy religious vibes from this book. I didn't understand why these were the good guys. Why were we supposed to be rooting for these people? Because they want to pretty much eradicate this other sect called the Dreamweavers, and the Dreamweavers are just like kind of like, it's like Christianity versus Wiccans, kind of, was the vibe I was getting. So I don't really know why. I just couldn't get behind that bit, but I did enjoy the story, and I think the second book focuses on a Dreamweaver, and I'm excited to read that one a little bit more because I liked that side of the story more. I really felt like the Circleans and the 5 white characters, which were like God's chosen, they were half immortal. I just didn't enjoy those characters, and I felt like there was like a very much a superiority complex coming across from them, and I just didn't understand. I completely just don't understand why we were supposed to be rooting for this religious sect, because I didn't like the connotations that it had or the way that they were trying to do things and trying to take over the entire world. But I don't know if that's going to be in the next book or not, but I have got that already on Audible, so I will be reading it at some point because yeah, I thought I would enjoy both, and it turns out that potentially I will not. The fourth book that I read in November was My Sister the Serial Killer by Oyinkan Braithwaite. I gave this book 3 stars. Again, I couldn't relate to the characters. The main character knew that her sister was a serial killer but didn't care until it affected her, and she didn't ever act. I don't want to like go into it too much because I don't want to spoil it, but there was no likable character. I didn't like the main character, I didn't like her sister, I didn't like her mum. I didn't think any of them were great. The doctor guy that the main character fancies, he is also like, I don't know, it seemed like very 2D, these characters. They didn't have much depth to them. I kind of understood where the backstory came from, and I feel like that could have been used a little bit more to delve into the relationships between the 2 sisters and their mum a little bit more, and their relationship with men, and how their dad's presence had this like everlasting effect on them. But I don't think it was done that well. It just seemed like they were a bit 2-dimensional and didn't have full stories behind them, really. I don't know, I just found myself bored reading it. There wasn't really much going on. I don't know, I was just very conflicted with this book because I was expecting it to be really great and it sounded amazing, and then I was just a little bit disappointed, I think, to be honest, with this one. The 5th book that I read in November was The Decision by Kevin Hart. This was an audio book that I read. I gave this 3 stars. It seemed to be very run-of-the-mill self-help. I enjoyed the narration by Kevin Hart because I enjoy Kevin Hart's comedic timing and his comedic style, but I thought the information given in this book was just sort of superficial, generic information that anybody can get from a multitude of self-help books. It didn't seem to be anything new or exciting, but yeah, I enjoyed it, but it wasn't outstanding, so it's not something that I would shout and rave about and go and recommend everyone to go and read. And now for December stats. In December I managed to read 5 books. It was 1 ebook, 1 audiobook and 3 physical books. 3 books were from the library, and I managed a 4-star average rating, so a slightly better month than November. This is a lot less than I was expecting to read in December, but I think I've suffered from major burnout ever since releasing my book back in October, so yeah. This is all I managed to do, but it was still a good reading month for me. The first book that I read in December was The Wolf and the Woodsman by Ava Reid, and I gave this book 3.5 stars. I thought it was an okay book, but I also thought it was very predictable and very obvious the outcome of certain things. So this mimics the Christian religion's rise and the persecution of Jewish and paganistic religions and religious subsects, and the main love interest for this book was so obviously the main love interest as soon as he was described on the page, so I had no doubts about where that was going to go or how that was going to be carried out. There were some bits in it that I thought were interesting and could have been expanded upon a little bit more. The main character's Evika, I think her name is pronounced. I think the way her magic was used and where she got her magic from, I feel like that could have been a very interesting subplot and delved into a little bit more. I feel like the conflictions that she had has, I can't remember what the races were, but like half Wolfgill and half the Jewish religious people, and just race that they were described as. She had this very strange fine line that she was walking, so she was completely hated by the patriarch, I want to say is the name of the other one, but I can't remember. and I don't feel like it went into it enough. I did enjoy it. It was a really fun read and I read it quite quickly, but I just felt like it didn't do enough for me. The second book that I read in December was The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet by Becky Chambers. I gave this book 4 stars. I did enjoy it. I thought that the start of this book reminded me so much of Mass Effect and I was really getting into it, but then I found myself not picking the book up, and there were some bits that seemed to be more filler or set up for something that was coming later in the series. I did enjoy it and I will be looking to pick up the series again at some point in the future, but at the moment I thought it was a good book, but I feel like I'm in the minority that I don't think it was amazing. But it was good. I liked her writing style. I really enjoyed the world that's been introduced, and I feel like the second book will be slightly better because the setup and the world building has sort of been done. I feel like this book has fallen into what I call first in the series syndrome, where it's just a lot of backstory and not a lot of stuff happening. I know a lot of people seem to say that the second book is the one where it's just falling apart, but I find that with longer series the first book tends to build too much and not have enough being done. So we've got a lot of like relationship building and a lot of backstory as to what is going to be happening and what sort of like the intergalactic relationships are going to be between different species. So I enjoyed it, but I feel like it was maybe like too much information that we maybe didn't fully need in this book, but who knows, because I've not read the rest of the series, but I would like to continue this one. Apologies, my light has just died. Apparently I need to charge this and I did not realise before I started filming, so hopefully I'll be able to sort the lighting out in post-production, but if not, we've got a slightly darkened rest of the video. The third book that I read in December was The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. I'd seen a lot of people talk about this. It's classed as a classic. I gave this 3 stars. I kind of enjoyed it. I listened to it on audio. It talks about how everyone has their own personal story and you have to like go and find out what it is that you're supposed to be doing in this world. So I really enjoyed that sort of setup with it, but I felt like it was very pushy with the religious side of things, and as a non-religious person I don't really like that sort of thing. It seems like it's just being shoved down your throat a little bit too much, and it was all about how like becoming a higher self to God and what God's plan was, whereas I liked the idea that everyone has a personal story and everyone has a thing that they've been put on this world to do, sort of thing, like destiny, fates, that kind of thing. I think I would have preferred it a lot more if it had just fallen down that track and didn't go quite into the religious side of things. The fourth book that I read in December was Tinsel, How the Girls Who Invented Christmas by Sybil Pounder. I absolutely love this book. I gave it 4.5 stars. I thought that this was a really great middle grade of a Christmas origin story. I like the fact that we think it's Santa Claus and Mr. Claus because of a typo from something. I just thought it was really imaginative. I really loved world building in here, and I will be keeping this to read for any potential children that I may have in the future, or just for myself, because I just thought it was such a great and fun read. I would really recommend it. It's a really good Christmas book. I read it, I think it was Christmas Eve I read it, and it really got me in the sort of Christmassy spirit, so I would 100% recommend this to anyone who wants a quick middle grade Christmas feel-good read. And the final book that I read in December was Iron Widow by Jiren J. Zhao. I think I pronounced her name right. I've started watching her YouTube channel because I found out she had a YouTube channel after reading this book, so I am trying to pronounce it right, but I know that Chinese pronunciation can be more difficult once you've got past a certain age because the airways and stuff have like fully formed, so apologies for pronouncing it wrong. But I gave this book 5 stars. It was absolutely amazing. It is a Chinese history reimagining of China's only female empress, Wu Zetian, and how she became the Empress of China. And in this is like, I think Jiren has sort of put this out as a Pacific Rim meets The Handmaid's Tale, and it is very much like that. I will be doing a full review of this book at some point in the future, but just know that it was amazing. I couldn't put this book down. I really loved the love interests in this book and the way that the story was played out. I loved the world building, I loved the politics in here, and I thought that this was a really great book. And I now need to read, well, I really need the second book in the series, but now I also need to read more of their books. I think they have another one coming out in June this year, which is a middle grade, which is, I can't remember if it was Pokemon or Oh, Percy Jackson meets Chinese history. There we go. I couldn't remember. So I kind of want to pick that one up as well because that sounds amazing. And if the writing style is anything like this, I think I will absolutely love it. And now for January's stats. In January, I read 4 books, 1 physical, 1 ebook, and 2 audiobooks. I had an average rating of 4.38 stars. I know I don't know how I managed 3.8, but there we go. 2 of these were library books, and I also managed to read 933 pages. From 2022, I will be able to include my page stats because I have created an entire spreadsheet which I'm hopefully going to be keeping up to date this year. I tried to do it last year and I really did not, but I've put all the graphs I think that I want in place, so I will be going through and doing a full sort of 2022 breakdown, which will be nice, and it will include my actual pages apart from like ebooks and audiobooks, which I kind of have to guess at. I'm also going to be using my little notebook that I got from Fairy Lou to do all of my book reviews because I like the fact that I could just chuck it in here and like do colour coding. So yeah, this is what I'm working with. We're very analog on this channel. So the first book that I read in January was 12 Months to $1 Million by Ryan Daniel Moran, and this was a book on how to get a business and take it to $1 million in 12 months. I thought the information was okay. I don't know, it was an okay book. I gave it 3.5 stars in total. I could see where the advice was coming from, but I just don't know the practicalities of it. I think because I'm not a full entrepreneur, I just want to write, it's not overly great. Todd had read this and recommended that I read it, but I already knew I didn't like it because it said you need to sell 4 products a day, priced at $30 a product to get to $1 million in 12 months. And I'm like, well, yeah, that's great, but what products? It doesn't like go into it. It's about finding your own sort of initiative and innovation and working through that. Thought it could have been done a little bit better. The second book that I read in January was Keeper of the Lost Cities by Shannon Messenger. I gave this one 4.5 stars. I really enjoyed it. This was a really fun middle grade. If you want to look for a sort of school setting and magic and Atlantis and things like that, it's got so much going for it, and I really loved the way that like mythology was like woven in to the story, and it was a really good book. I need to finish the rest of the series, but I think there's like 10 books in that series, so probably not one that I'll be starting anytime soon, but I did really enjoy it, and I think this one would be a good book for anyone to pick up. I think you don't have to just be a child to read this. The main character's 11 or 12, so it's middle grade on the cusp of YA, I think, which is kind of like the same as Percy Jackson, but I would really recommend it. The third book that I read in January was Chivalry by Neil Gaiman. This was my audiobook. It was 45 minutes long. It was a short story. I did not realise how short it was, and this is about an old pensioner who finds the Holy Grail in a charity shop and buys it, and then Sir Galahad comes and tries to take it from her. And I loved the characterisation in here. I love the way that the characters were built and the little British like idiosyncrasies within this book. It was so cute, and just 45 minutes of pure joy. I gave this book a complete 5 stars just because I loved everything about it, but I really enjoyed the way that Neil Gaiman is able to create characters and create words, so it's not a surprise that I gave it a full 5 stars. And the final book that I read in January, at least finished anyway, was The Power of Privilege: How White People Can Challenge Racism by June Sarfong. I actually went through this and annotated it quite a bit more than I usually do. It was more highlighting. I'm not very good with tabs or anything like that. I gave this 4.5 stars. I can't remember if I just said that or not. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a really good place to start on what we can do to challenge racism and to become more anti-racist every day. There's a lot of things in here about how we need to not make someone else a victim, or not a victim. We don't need to we don't have to put blame on just general people, and it's trying to work against that initial guilt and the obstructions that you might face by telling someone that they're being racist in the actions that they're doing or the words that they're saying, and how to combat that and what we can do. I feel like there's not too much that I can do because a lot of this was aimed at sort of like top level management and making sure that you're hiring people from diverse backgrounds, but there's some charity things in the end of the book which like more everyday people can do to help change the world, so I'll be making a note of that in more detail, and hopefully it'll be something that I can look to implement in my everyday life. So those were my books from the last 3 months. I hope that you enjoyed them. If you've read any of these books, let me know what you thought of them in the comments down below, or if there's any that you would like to read, let me know and I will give you a bit more information, because I've kind of rushed this ending bit because I just got a notification that my phone is about to die as well. So apparently I was really unprepared for today's filming session. If you like this video, don't forget to give it a like, and if you want to see more of my videos, don't forget to hit subscribe. There's a new one out every single week. I hope you're all well and you're all staying safe, and until next time, bye!